My name is Christine Kamavez. I'm a returned Peace Corps volunteer from Kazakhstan. I served from 1996 until 1998, and I was stationed there as a teacher of English as a foreign language, although I did some secondary work with project management with some teacher groups, and then I also worked on the first micro-lending project in Kazakhstan.
Okay.
Well, I have to say, I think I always wanted to join the Peace Corps. I know that sounds so like such a cliche, but I think it always was in my heart to do at some point. And then as I was trying to figure out what to do with myself after college, I thought that was a great time to go. And when I first approached the Peace Corps office in Detroit at the time, they're like, well, you're a history and philosophy major. You don't really have any skills that we need. If you go and learn how to teach English as a second language, or you become a TESOL tutor, or you do some other type of community work, you might have skills that we need. But right now, while you sound good, you can't really do much for us. And so I was like, took it in the chin, but I took the feedback seriously, and I ended up spending a year as a VISTA volunteer for the literacy agency in Washtenaw County. And then that seemed to be enough community work, and I also did tutoring for a couple here in Ann Arbor for a year, and that gave me the qualifications I needed to apply. So I did, and I got in. They did. They said I was going to Kazakhstan. That was, I had taken, I'd studied Russian and Russian history and Soviet history in school. And so while I wanted to serve anywhere, I felt like I could do a lot with the additional language skills that I was bringing by going to a Russian-speaking country. Now, I was part of the fourth group of volunteers in Kazakhstan. So it was just, we were relatively new to the country and the organization itself, and I was lucky enough to get to a Russian-speaking country. The training situation was on Lake Kopchagai, and it was a very dusty, sandy town that had several public schools, and our training was stationed at one of the public schools. And so we got oriented right away. We got matched with our host family for the training period, started our language training in both Kazakh and in Russian. And so we were, I think from really the first day, we had a day to get to know our host families, and then we started really training very quickly after that. And you know, I know a lot of people took time to get used to the food, and a lot of people took time to get used to the site, but again, I was just pumped to be there. I was pumped to be speaking Russian again, and I was just excited to actually have this dream come true. Yes, here's a funny story. So they sent us on our site visits. So we all had to go to a site that was eventually going to be a place where the teachers and the business educators and the environmental instructors were going to be stationed. So they were all real live Peace Corps sites, but it wasn't necessarily that any of us would be posted there. And so they sent us to a little town called Ushtobe. And I'm not sure that the police commandant in Ushtobe ever got the message that the Soviet Union had collapsed, or that he wasn't allowed to imprison any tourists that were coming to his town. But as I recall, I went with a couple of friends of mine, and we had just a great time. We arrived in Ushtobe, and we went to a restaurant for dinner, and everyone, first of all, there weren't very many people in the restaurant, but the folks in the restaurant were, they were quite surprised to see us. And so then we made it back to our hotel, and 5 minutes later the police commandant showed up, and he put us under house arrest. So we didn't actually do the things that we were supposed to do, figure out where the post office was, figure out where this school was, and meet this person and that person, because we were put under house arrest. Now, house arrest, it sounds terrible, but like really, he wanted his daughter to get some free English language lessons. And so in addition to putting us under house arrest, he brought his daughter, who was studying for an English exam, and expected us to teach her for the weekend while we were, you know, stationed in our home on our site visit. So we were the only group that got arrested while we were there, but luckily there's no record. There's no official record of it. We were just told that it would be much safer for us if, you know, we did not ever leave the hotel for the weekend that we were there.
Now, what was the excuse for putting you under house arrest?
We were foreigners.
Just that?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
And the day before classes start, I woke up in a huge amount of pain. I had a tooth abscess. And so, so I have to find my way to Almaty to get to the Peace Corps office. I have to tell my counterpart that I am not going to make it to school. And then I get to the capital from this lovely man, Timofey, who I met at the train station. He was like, I'll take you right to the Peace Corps office. There was quite a high trade in taxi service back and forth from the capital. And he was the sweetest man, drove me right down to the Peace Corps office, where I was told that I could go home to get it fixed, and then I wouldn't come back. So I had been a Peace Corps volunteer for all of 2 weeks, and they're like, it's not worth it for us to send you home and then bring you back. And I was just crushed. And I said, well, what are the options for me getting it fixed here? So I actually had a root canal right in Kazakhstan about 2 weeks after I was signed in or sworn in as a volunteer, and everything went just beautifully, and I happily took whatever pain reliever the Peace Corps medical officers were willing to give me, and I went back up to start teaching about a week after school started.
I'm just imagining, I mean, could you imagine before you go over there saying, well, yeah, we're all set to go, but and when you get there, we'll probably have a root canal done. And
it's hard to say whether I would have agreed to those stipulations, but I was happy to agree to them, because really the thought of it was just soul crushing to be told that I wouldn't be able to come back after the excitement of training and after really just starting to get settled in my hometown. So. What I was happy to see, though, is that kids all over the world are the same. I remember, again, we were struggling with electricity, and there wasn't a lot of electricity. I'll just leave it as that. There wasn't really a lot of heat, but for the most part, there wasn't a lot of electricity. And the students would come into my class, and they'd be so sad and upset because they couldn't do their homework because they couldn't see. They couldn't, it was so dark already because it was getting to be fall and the lights would be out, and they just had a very difficult time getting their homework done because they couldn't see. On the other hand, they were up on the latest Hollywood and other types of gossip, especially as it pertained to Madonna. And so I wanted to know how it was that they kept up on all of the gossip, and they said, well, they read all the magazines. And I was like, how can you read magazines and not do your homework when you're missing light? So it was great to see that kids have all the same skills, whatever country you happen to be in, and they're just as delightful as you'd expect them to be. They try to get away with as much as they can, and they know whether they've got you or not. So it was really interesting to feel so different sometimes, but then to really say, you know what, everyone's really the same. And everyone's got a sense of humor, and everyone's going to try and get away with what they can with a kind of twinkle in their eye, and they know when they got caught, and then after that they did their homework, whether there was light or not. So, yep. But yeah, seeing the world through someone else's eyes is, I mean, really it's one of the best lessons that I took from the Peace Corps, is that really to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes makes a huge difference. And to understand what it feels like to be different means that I'm not short with people, or even when I am, I recognize it more quickly, and developing that patience with myself and with others, because it's so easy to figure out what separates us, and it's not easy to figure out what keeps us all, what binds us all from a humanity perspective. But that experience was really, really life-changing. No, I have a deep desire to try to do it again. Like, I know I had dreams for the couple of years after. I was like, well, I'd just go back. I wonder which country I'd go to. I wonder where I'd be. I wonder what I'd do now. So we'll see. I don't know if that's ever going to happen, but it's something that I still keep in the back of my head.
My name is Kirsty Nator. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in Kazakhstan from '98 to 2000 in Rudny, Kazakhstan, and I was an English teacher at a pedagogical college.